counsellor or therapist, so I'm not the one to say that. But what we will call, and what we would look at governments and people like here, the politicians and the ministers who were here earlier, is that once you begin to see this not as something which you are judging in terms of people's moral choices to use drugs or not, you see this as a health issue, you see it as and you see it from a rights perspective, then you have to make human rights basically requires that you develop policies which are evidence-based, and that's the problem with the big criminal. There's no evidence whatsoever that the criminal law works. It's completely opposite. So if you start applying a human rights framework and says, well, we need to have a rational connection between our policies and the outcome. We want to look at the evidence of what works. We want to look at what works in terms of harm reduction, in terms of making available substitute treatment, where, in what format, to who needs it. When you start looking at where the evidence comes, when you add in layers of transparency, which includes being able to monitor, recognize when things aren't working, when you put in accountability, which is about responding to the data you're collecting, those are all very key core human rights-based approaches. So if you want to have a policy which is about realising the right to health, which is about using your maximum available resources to make available and accessible treatment, which is appropriate for people. If you want to look at it in terms of making sure that the people who use drugs and access services have rights, and all of a sudden, just because you are labelled as a drug user, that suddenly you lose a whole array of rights. I mean, that's beyond decriminalisation. Then you start looking to positive ways. And I think that the big problem, this is not just in Ireland, I mean, it's been a global situation. We have 3 international conventions about drug control. And more or less they have driven governments into a situation where they believe that the way forward has been to limit and criminalise and crack down on the trade. And we've heard from the floor as well how this has impacted on development of substances for medical use, for proper medical use, and interfered with access for medical use. So, if you start moving away from seeing this simply as something you have to control, but look at solutions. We don't know exactly what will work in the long term, but we need to have that space, and governments need to feel confident that they can explore models and implement models and then follow the evidence where it takes you. And that is happening, as you said, in places. I mean, in Latin America, which has had a huge drug problem but also suffered tremendously from the drug trade and the criminal control of the drug trade, they are the ones leading the advance at the international level in terms of decriminalisation on a domestic level, and then trying to get reform at the international level, because they've suffered the most, and they've been at the beginning of the call for this.
Thank you very much. We'll now spend some time just for questions. If you want to take a couple of questions. 1 or 2 questions. Yeah.
2 questions.
2 questions, and that's it. The boss said so.
Yeah. One question, but obviously, what do you feel we have a growing population of performance enhancing drugs and image enhancing drug users in Ireland? What do you feel we could learn that would influence policy that within Ireland? From your research, what could we have learned?
Well, in Wales, as I said, we have a historic population. When I worked in Needle Exchange Gold back in 89, 90, I think we had 4 people coming forward who were professional bodybuilders. And now we're able to evidence from contact with needle and syringe services that 51% of our needle exchange is for people who are primary steroid and image enhancing drug users. What we can learn? Well, interestingly, in the first year of Wedinos, we opened up the system for testing new on the market steroids and image enhancing drugs, and we were able to evidence that actually a third of the product didn't contain what it said on the label. Again, I think for me it's about identifying individuals who have really good, credible knowledge. They may not work in drug services, they probably won't. They may be steroid users themselves. We have developed a network in Wales of 16, we're only small, so 16, you'll need more, key people who will know more about steroids and image enhancers than any practitioner from a book. So engage with them, ask what services they need, what problems they're experiencing, and we have an online survey at www.ipedinfo.co.uk, so anyone can access it. It's got harm reduction advice in there. It's got, which was a bit of a challenge, a safe injecting film on there. And it's populated with information from people who are using, so credible sources of information. In terms of the online survey, the survey that we've just finished the 3rd year run of, individuals can contribute to that, and the findings are published at the end of each year, and we're very happy to share all of that information with you and the survey. So engage with people who are credible. This population, steroid and image enhancing drug users, will talk with people who understand they are not drug users. They will not access mainstream services, because why would they? There are very different motivations for use in any given population. It's about credibility. So just try and find them in the first instance, and they will do a lot of the work for you.
Thank you very much to our panel for providing these answers to these difficult questions and what works here in Ireland. We have a lot to learn, and the conversation will continue. We'll still have, don't worry afterwards, tea and coffee outside for people that want to hang around and network and learn more. Please give her a round of applause.